Welcome all my crochet hook and friends, and thank you for watching Heather's Craft Corner. I'm Heather, and today we will be learning how to crochet the Slightly Twisted Beanie. If you'd also like access to the free written pattern, check out the link in the description below. This is an intermediate level pattern presented in US terms. Stitches used in the pattern include the half double crochet, and the front post treble crochet. Tutorial videos for the half double crochet and double crochet are available on my channel, and the links will be provided below. The front post treble is part of a special stitch, so we will walk through that one together. For this pattern, you will need about 200 yards of worsted weight yarn, an I9 5.5mm hook, an H8 5mm hook, stitch markers, and a yarn needle. You also may want a 4-inch pom pom to add at the top. This isn't required, but it makes it super cute. Leaving at least a 10-inch tail for sewing, begin by making a slip knot. In this first section, we will be making the band using the H8 5mm hook. Chain 10. For row 1, you'll insert the hook into the third chain from the hook. The first 2 chains do not count as a stitch. I'll be working into the back loops of the chain, but you can do it however you prefer. Insert into this third chain from the hook. Half double crochet, then mark the first stitch. Marking stitches is optional, but a great way to keep track of your stitches. Half double crochet in each chain across. Turn your work. You should have 8 stitches. Starting row 2, chain 2. The chain 2 does not count as a stitch throughout the pattern. For these rows, you are going to be working into the third loop of the half double crochet. Here's the top of the half double crochet. The front and back loop form a V shape. And here below those loops are the third loops of the half double crochet. These are where you'll work into your stitches. Start your first half double crochet, inserting your hook into the third loop from the bottom. Again, mark that first stitch. Moving to the next half double crochet, here's the third loop we just worked into. Here is a vertical strand that is part of the stitch post. Then there's this diagonal strand here. That's your next third loop. Work your next half double crochet, inserting your hook from the bottom. Let's go over that again. Here is the third loop we just worked into. Here is the vertical strand that is part of the stitch post. Then the diagonal strand that is our third loop. The third loop strand should also be a little longer. Work your next half double crochet. Here's that diagonal strand for the next half double crochet. Continue in each of the stitches across. In this last stitch, your hook should end up right next to your stitch marker. You should have 8 stitches. Row 3 through 60 will repeat row 2, so turn your work, chain 2, and work a half double crochet in each third loop across. Repeat until you have 60 rows. After you finish row 60, it should look like this. Try wrapping the band around your head to make sure it fits comfortably. If you need to make it a little bigger or smaller, you can do that by adding or subtracting rows in multiples of 3. Then, when you start working in the rounds, you can just increase or decrease by that number of stitches, or adjust repeats. For example, if you made it 3 rows larger, or 63 rows, you would do 21 repeats in the rounds instead of 20. If you made it 3 rows smaller, or 57 rows, you would do 19 repeats in the rounds instead of 20. Now we'll sew the band together. You may want to put a stitch marker in the loop where your hook was so it doesn't unravel. Thread your needle using the tail we left when we made our base chain. We're going to sew the band using a whip stitch through the third loop of row 60 and the chain. Line up your stitches with the base chains, making sure you do not twist the band, and make sure your third loops of row 60 are facing you. Insert your needle from the bottom of the third loop of row 60 and through the base chain. My base chain has 2 loops because I worked through the back loop of my chain. Your chain may only have a single loop depending on how you inserted your hook. You'll do the same thing in each of the 8 stitches across. After it is sewn, you can see that we just made a matching ridge on the other side of your work to help the seam blend in. Finish it off by weaving in your end. I like to weave it down one side, then down the other, then back to make sure it's secure. Go ahead and cut off the end. Use an I9 5.5mm hook for the main body of the hat. Chain 2 and work a half double crochet into each row around. There are 2 rows in between each of the ridges. Pick your spots to insert your hook and then be consistent. Try to insert your hook where it won't create a large gap. Continue working around the band. At the end of your round, you should have 60 stitches. Join with a slip stitch. Moving on to round 2. If you want the band to be a different color than the body of the hat, change colors here. Chain 2. In round 2, we are going to work double crochets into the third loop of the half double crochets. So here's the top of the half double crochets, and the third loop is going to be right behind those top V-shaped strands. Yarn over, insert your hook from the top into that third loop, and finish the double crochet. You'll keep doing this all the way around. You should have 60 stitches. Join with a slip stitch. I'm going to mark the last stitch of the round to make it easier to see. For round 3, chain 2. We are going to work our first double crochet front post treble together. Start by making a double crochet in the first stitch, but do not finish it. Leave the last 2 loops on the hook. We have the first stitch of round 2 here. This is the chain 2, which is not a stitch. So here's our first double crochet of round 2. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches and work the front post treble around the post of that next stitch. So yarn over twice, insert your hook from front to back to front around that post, then yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through 2 loops again, yarn over and pull through the last 3 loops on the hook. That is 1 double crochet front post treble together, and it counts as 1 stitch. Don't worry, we'll go over it again. We'll be working a double crochet into each of our skip stitches, working behind the double crochet front post treble together. You'll work the double crochet inserting the hook from front to back just as you would if the treble was not there. Now we'll do our double crochet front post treble together. We'll be starting the double crochet right here in this next stitch. You can see that it's the same stitch that we worked the front post treble around. They should line up. So that is the stitch we're working into. Start your double crochet, leaving 2 loops on the hook. Skip the next 2 stitches and work around the post of the next stitch. Make your treble crochet. Finish off the stitch. Work a double crochet into each of the 2 skip stitches. Continue around. When you get to the last 3 stitches, you are going to work that front post treble around the first stitch of round 2. Start the same way with the double crochet and leaving 2 loops on the hook. You're going to skip 2. Then this is your chain 2. Skip the chain 2, it is not a stitch. And here's your first double crochet of round 2. Go ahead and finish the double crochet front post treble together, working the front post treble around the first stitch of round 2. Double crochet in each of the last 2 stitches. Join with a slip stitch. You should have 60 stitches. For round 4 through 12, you are just going to repeat round 3, but instead of working around the post of the double crochet from the round below, you'll be working around the front post treble from the round below, making a continuous spiral. Keep working rounds until you finish round 12. If you want your beanie to be more slouchy, you should add a few more rows here to your liking. At the end of these rounds, you are going to be working the front post treble of the double crochet front post treble together around the first front post treble post of the previous round. Finish the round with your 2 double crochet. Join with a slip stitch. You should have 60 stitches. The last round will be a decrease round. You'll start the same way as the previous rounds by working 2 chains and a double crochet front post treble together. For the 2 skip stitches, we'll work a decrease stitch. So instead of 2 double crochet, we'll work 2 double crochet together. Yarn over, insert your hook into the first skip stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. You should have 2 loops left on the hook. Yarn over, insert your hook into the second skip stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. This counts as 1 stitch. Continue working the double crochet front post treble together stitch and the double crochet 2 together stitch around. Join with a slip stitch. You should have 40 stitches. Leave a long tail for sewing, and then fasten off. Using a yarn needle, you will weave the tail into every other stitch. Insert the needle from front to back into every other stitch ending by inserting a second time into that first stitch. Pull to cinch closed. Flip your hat inside out and weave in the end. Start weaving in the same direction as your work, then weave it back in the other direction. If you want to add a pom-pom to the top of your hat, do not cut the yarn yet. You can use it to sew it on, or sew on a button for it to attach to. Or you could also cut the yarn and use embroidery thread. If you don't want to attach a pom-pom, go ahead and cut the yarn and you're done. I like to use faux fur pom-poms that have a little elastic loop so I can make them removable for washing. Simply add a button to the inside of the hat and you can easily attach or remove them. Use a button that's big enough to not pull through the hole, but small enough that it's not noticeable when you wear the hat. The button doesn't have to be perfectly centered. Mine's off to the side and it's just fine. Go ahead and cut the yarn. You can see the elastic loop on this pom-pom. This is going to go over the button. To attach it, poke the crochet hook through the hole from the inside out. Hook the elastic loop on the pom-pom, pull it through the hole, and loop it over the button. This makes it easy to remove for washing. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video from our left-handed series, because even though they're a little backwards, lefties are people too. Be sure to like or comment below. Also click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on upcoming videos. For patterns using this stitch, see the description notes or head on over to heatherscraftcorner.com. Happy crocheting!